Good evening, dear viewers. Welcome back to Review Program. This episode's theme of discussion is Evaluation of Media Content, New Horizons in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan has witnessed significant changes in the media landscape in recent years. Technological innovations, changes in viewers' preferences and choices, as well as new government initiatives have influenced the diversity and quality of media content in the country. In this episode, we'll explore how these changes are shaping new horizons for media content in Uzbekistan and what prospects are opening up for its development. The media industry plays an important role in shaping the public awareness and cultural identity of the nation. In Uzbekistan, the industry has gone through a number of key moments in its history, from the first media initiatives to recent reforms and openness. The history of Uzbekistan's media industry began with the appearance of the first newspapers and magazines in the late 90s and early 20th centuries. The Soviet Union period brought with it radio broadcasting and television, which became an important media outlets. After independence in 1991, Uzbekistan faced the need to reform the media sphere. This period was marked by various changes in legislation and attempts to eliminate state monopoly in the media industry.
Assalamu alaikum.
Efirde Uz News.
Bugün dasturumuzda
Recently in Uzbekistan have witnessed a new stage in development of media industry. The country has begun to attach more significance to freedom of expression and access to information. Legislative reforms have opened the door to independent media organizations and created more convenient environment for development of free press. With this transformative period, the media content in Uzbekistan's public information industry has also changed over the time. While previously media content was concentrated mainly in the hands of state-owned media, in recent years Uzbekistan has actively moving towards greater freedom of expression and access to information. Reforms in legislation and government policy are aimed at creating more open and diverse media environment. In particular, private media have emerged, online independent news platforms are developing, and the blogging industry is also gaining ground in the country. New television channels, online platforms, audio and video podcasts, blogs and more have emerged, enabling citizens to receive information in a variety of formats and from a variety of sources. The history of Uzbekistan's media industry is a story of change and transformation. From the first newspapers to the digital age, each stage has contributed to shaping the country's media landscape. We'll learn more about this in our interview with Professor Peter Shoke. We'll explore the current state of media content in Uzbekistan and its future prospects. Good evening, dear viewers. Today's episode guest is a filmmaker, media expert, Professor Peter Shoke. How do you assess the recent changes in media content in Uzbekistan in the past few years?
Well, as I say, I don't see so much media content in Uzbekistan. But I would say in general, I see more content being produced now because of the media changes in technology. You know, I grew up in a world where television was broadcast and satellite. My channels were mostly satellite broadcast, but I've also been involved in local broadcast. The changes that I see in Uzbekistan are that there are many more platforms now than there were even 5 years ago. More internet, more podcasts, which means more independent journalists. When I teach any journalism classes, this is one of the things we discover most, is there's a revolution going on, or maybe you could say an entire new renaissance of news journalism, because it's no longer the exclusive domain of one channel going in one direction. Now it's two directions. People, ordinary people with an iPhone can report and create blogs, and they're doing very, very interesting video blogs.
So you mentioned about the technologies and innovations. What do you think in Uzbekistan, what should we develop most? What about the artificial intelligence, and how can we develop in media industry this, how we can gain this?
AI is going to have the same type of two-edged sword, because we're already seeing inside of Webster's students, there's AI cheating going on. You know, when you when you can prompt AI to write something that would sound like you, and then you don't really have to do it. I call it cheat GPT. But it's something that is going to happen, and it will actually take over a lot of the media jobs. This year, we're starting to see you can create an entire film that may look like Avatar using verbal prompts, and it will create it. So in a way, it's a little scary for people who make film, make media, because AI will have the capacity very soon, sooner than we want, to be able to create its own news and disseminate it. So, of course, many people have a bit of a fear for what AI may do in taking over taking over human authority.
Yes, replace them.
And perhaps replace them, yeah. But it also has great potential for being used as a new tool. AI is never going to do anything that's original. It's a reworking of something else. It's a copy of a copy of a copy of something else. Only humans really originate the original content. But unless there's an editor, or maybe it will be a new job, the person who prompts AI, they will become sort of the directors and producers, and AI will be their crew, and they will only do what they're told to do. But that prompter, the person who's offering the instructions, is actually the one who's going to guide the truth or the validity that AI is going to choose from. Oh, that's a big question. It's a really good one. And I do dive into this when I'm teaching when I'm teaching theory. Because what's happening now, related to AI, but also just related to social media, is that it is no longer a central source, as I've mentioned. It's not the way it used to be. The news, as Walter Cronkite, our famous newscaster from the 1960s, he would say, "The news is what I say it is." That pretty much spelled what broadcast news has been about. It's whatever they choose it to be. Now, because of the many platforms, it becomes a little bit more, let's just say, maybe it's a little bit more of the freedom of speech idea, because people are saying things that are not being censored. And that can be a problem too. That can be, in America, we see some big problems with fake news. People coming up with very opinionated news, misinformation, and nobody is there to stop them. Or there is no credibility of the source that is at stake.
In your opinion, what actions can be taken to further develop media content in Uzbekistan, considering current trends?
So here's what goes on internationally with current trends in media. I hate to put it this way, but you follow the money. That's what guides the trends in the content. Let's take journalism, for example. In commercial news journalism, which most of the big companies in the world are independently owned and are relying on commercial advertising. That's where they make their money. When people become a little burned out on too much negative news, it influences what that news channel is going to talk about. The amount of negative news, the amount of things that make people depressed are going to cut off viewership, which means that the commercial sponsors are not going to choose that channel. They'll choose one that gets more higher ratings, more viewers. Now, that's not the case with government-owned channels, not as much, because they're not dependent on viewer approval. Al Jazeera is split between the two. That's a government, Qatar, it funds that channel, but they also have commercials. So in a way, they sense it both ways. But the content of the programming is going to be guided by this money factor. You may be seeing in the future, in the near future, the trends and the tendencies toward more upbeat news. Whether that's what's dominating the headlines, they'll try to add some in there to lighten it up, to make it more viewer-friendly. It's even more so when it comes to commercial television. People are looking at things that, depending on the censorship freedom of the region, and unfortunately in my country, it's almost anything goes. You know, there'll be LGBT topics that are purposely put into the programs, and there'll be controversial things. In a way, that dominates our TV programming because it's not being led by creativity or higher standards or ethical or moral right decisions. It's made by what is the base of viewers? What do they want? And that guides it. Unfortunately, it's true.
So my next question is, what do you think, what role do the social media and online platforms play in dissemination and influence of media content in Uzbekistan?
Well, they're going to have to remain in both, but certainly to push toward the newer things, the internet, the blogging, both in the ways that they're reported and the ways that they're broadcast, because that's the way the world is going. In a sense, it becomes much more fragmented. But you still need to have that anchor. Anchor is a good word when you talk about RT reporters in the studio. They are somewhat the unchanging, unwavering opinions, and they'll try to stay more unbiased. They're taking from the same sources, AP, Reuters. They're taking news. These are the smaller channels that don't have boots on the ground, let's say. But the big channels that I'm talking about, Al Jazeera, NBC Nightly News, CNN, BBC, they have people there, journalists, they call sometimes stringers, people who are out doing the local news. And these channels have a lot to, they have a reputation for being balanced. So I tend to watch those more than I would watch blogging.
Changes in the Media presents an in-depth analysis of the evolution of media content in Uzbekistan, highlighting the key factors driving its development, as well as bringing to light innovative ideas and perspective for the future of the country's media landscape. Here our analysis comes to the end. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next episodes.